Waking up every day with a clear sense of purpose. Not shaken by setbacks. Not pulled by the chaos around you. Fully focused on what actually matters. It sounds unrealistic. It belongs to a different kind of person. But it doesn't. That level of control isn't about being extraordinary. It comes down to seeing something most people miss. So, stop. And look closer. Because the real struggle isn't a lack of discipline. It is a lack of direction. Today, we uncover the quiet truth about self-mastery. A truth that will shift how you view effort forever. Are you ready to stop reacting to life? And start directing it? Let's begin. The illusion of effort. There is a reason the ancient wisdom of the Stoics still holds weight today. Philosophy was never about escaping life. It was never about suppressing your humanity. It was about clarity. Seeing what deserves your energy, and what is merely a thief of your time. When that becomes clear, discipline changes its nature. It stops feeling like a heavy chain. It becomes a form of alignment. A quiet, steady way of moving through the world. Without constantly working against your own nature. But look at how most days unfold for the average person. Small distractions feel like emergencies. Notifications feel like commands. Other people's expectations quietly become your top priorities. Before you even notice it, your mental energy is drained. The day is over. But nothing meaningful has moved forward. This is a specific kind of exhaustion. Not from doing too much work. But from doing too much of what doesn't matter. When clarity is missing, every tiny noise feels important. That is the trap of the modern age. You respond to whatever is loudest. Whatever shows up first on your screen. It feels productive, but it isn't direction. It is merely a reaction. The cost of constant reaction: you move more, but you don't move forward. Effort increases, but the results remain stagnant. And then, the frustration begins to build. Not because you are lazy. But because something deep inside isn't aligned. So, the real starting point for a powerful life isn't action. It is clarity. It is about stepping back, even for a few minutes. And asking the hard question: what actually deserves my finite time and energy? Not based on social pressure. Not based on comparison. But on what genuinely matters when everything else is stripped away. This question is uncomfortable. It forces you to see how much of your life is running on autopilot. But it is a necessary discomfort. Because without that honesty, discipline is just a mask for stress. Once you see the autopilot clearly, you stop trying to fix everything. You start focusing on the few things that change everything. And that focus creates the space you've been looking for. The power of the quiet pause. Once that clarity begins to settle, something quieter reveals itself. The subtle pull toward distraction. The urge to move away from what requires deep effort. And toward what feels easy in the moment. This urge doesn't come from the world. It comes from within. And that is what makes it so difficult to recognize as an enemy. It feels natural. It sounds like your own voice. But when you don't notice it, you stop being the captain of your ship. You start reacting to the waves. You delay the work that defines you. You avoid the discomfort that grows on you. Over time, those small moments of giving in define your legacy. That is why the Stoic pause matters. A brief moment where you do not immediately act on a feeling. Where you notice the impulse, but you don't obey it. In that tiny gap, you regain your freedom. That pause is where discipline starts to take a physical shape. Not through intense shouting at yourself, but through silent awareness. You begin to see a powerful truth: not every thought needs to be followed. Not every feeling needs to be in action. Mastering the internal dialogue. This realization creates distance. Enough distance to choose a different path. At first, this feels highly unnatural. The mind is a master of persuasion. It will justify almost anything when you are tired. It tells you to wait until tomorrow. It tells you that you've done enough. And those arguments sound completely logical in the heat of the moment. But over time, you start to recognize them for what they are. They are just patterns of a mind seeking comfort. And once you see the pattern, it loses its power over you. True mastery doesn't come from fighting your thoughts. It comes from understanding them. Seeing them clearly as clouds passing in the sky. And choosing not to be moved by the storm. Building identity through consistency. Trust in yourself begins to build. Not through positive thinking. But through the evidence of your actions. Through small moments where you follow through. Especially when no one is there to applaud you. Because discipline isn't proven in a crisis. It is proven in the mundane. Consistency is quiet. It doesn't feel impressive or cinematic. It is repetitive. It is predictable. But over time, it changes your DNA. You stop negotiating with yourself every morning. The internal debate simply dies out. You do not need motivation. The decision was already made weeks ago. Your role today is simply to show up and execute. Slowly, effort turns into identity. You are no longer a person who is trying to be disciplined. You are a person who follows through. Period. Closing the gap. This is where the gap finally begins to close. The gap between who you are and who you know you could be. Closing that gap doesn't require a miracle. It starts with the smallest deliberate actions. Staying with a difficult task for 5 more minutes. Choosing the book over the scroll. These actions don't feel like much in isolation. But they accumulate like interest in a bank. Each time you show up, you send a silent message to your soul. You are proving that your intentions have weight. You are creating a history of reliability. The doubt begins to fade. The hesitation loses its grip. You build a foundation that is independent of how you feel. Because feelings shift like the wind. But identity is the anchor. The necessity of controlled difficulty. Consistency builds the foundation. But if you stay only within your comfort zone, your potential remains caged. Comfort stabilizes you. But it also limits you. It sets boundaries that you eventually mistake for reality. That is why you must seek out deliberate discomfort. Not as a punishment. But as a training ground. Choosing the harder path when the easy one is right there. Staying in the friction until the friction feels normal. When you stop running from discomfort, it loses its ability to scare you. It becomes just another sensation. Like the cold or the rain. Challenges stop being obstacles. They become the weight you lift to get stronger. Seneca once wrote, "I judge you unfortunate because you have never lived through misfortune." Without challenges, you never know what you are capable of surviving. You grow in the moments where you want to quit, but you don't. That friction is the proof of growth. The final shift, from forced to natural. Eventually, the struggle ends. Discipline is no longer a battle. It is an alignment. When your daily actions reflect your deepest values, life stops feeling like a series of chores. It feels like a masterpiece in progress. You no longer look for external motivation. You have an internal engine that doesn't need praise to run. You have built a structure that holds firm. Even when the world around you is in chaos. And once you feel that level of self-reliance, you can never go back to your old self. Because you are no longer a victim of your impulses. You are the architect of your destiny. The authority conclusion. If this message has cleared the fog in your mind, then do not let this moment pass without a commitment. Philosophy is useless without application. Leave a single word in the comments to mark your start. Intentional. This is your contract with your future self. A promise to master the pause. A promise to choose direction over distraction. Subscribe to this journal to stay aligned. Join the few who understand that the quietest lives often hold the greatest power. Stay bold. Stay silent. Stay stoic.